Today we're going to be talking about the MasterTracker. That's a 1541 enhancement that I started creating about 2 years ago, just a little over 2 years ago. August was 2 years. Anyway, it's a drive enhancement for the 1541 that I had always envisioned for it. So stick around and have a look at what I've created. Hi, and welcome back to 8-Bit Resurgence. A couple hours ago, I dropped a photograph on my Facebook group, the Commodore Enhancements Facebook group, and the response has been quite strong, and a lot of really interested people, which I'm kind of surprised of because the 1541 is kind of out of vogue these days, given all of the different mass storage devices that are available these days. I don't think there are a whole lot of people using the 1541. But the 1541 was the very first mass storage device, if you want to call it that, that I ever used. I started, of course, with the VIC-20 and a 1540 disk drive, and shortly thereafter went to a 64 with a 1541. And that was fine. I got a fast load, which made things better. But around that time, flipping through the Computes Gazette magazine that I had to get every month, there was an ad in there for the Indus GT, and that was a third-party 1541 compatible drive for those that don't know, and it had a tracker built into it, so it would display the track that the drive was on. And that really got me thinking, how cool would it be to have that in a 1541? So, of course, that Indus GT was awesome and way out of my price range back then. But that, I never did anything about it, but that always sat in the back of my mind. What could you do with a 1541? Well, a couple of years ago, I had this idea of building a tracker into the face of a 1541. So I was talking with a buddy of mine, call him West 256. That's what he goes by on the boards, and he was telling me about this this tracker that he designed back in the late 80s. It was a digital track display, the DTD we'll call it, and he also invented this density level display, DLD we'll call those. And I told him, what I always thought would be cool, and he offered to give me his schematics to use for this project. So that's really how the MasterTracker took off. In around that same time, I hired another person from the community to do some of the layup work that had to be done, because it was going to be a lot of work and a number of boards. You've seen the picture of the MasterTracker, so you see there's a display on the front of the drive, and there's obviously there's something going on inside the drive. It comprises of 5 or 6 boards in total. There's 2 for the display, and there's 3 inside the drive, and then there's one more PCB that's kind of a throwaway for installing. That obviously didn't need a circuit, but it's still there was something that needed to be created there. So that's kind of where we started. I had this idea. I managed to get a hold of a tracker and a density level circuit through the generosity of my very smart friend Wes256. And so that's where it really started a couple of years ago. Then we started dreaming up ideas of what we could put in the limited space that we had. I wanted to apply some constraints to this project, however, before I started. It had to be made with logic chips. That's it. It couldn't use any CPLDs. It couldn't use any microcontrollers, no Raspberry Pi, no Arduino, no FPGA, nothing. It had to, no programming. I just wanted it to use components that would have existed back in the 80s. So technically it could have been created then. One other constraint that I had was no labels. So it couldn't have any, adhesive label on the front. It all had to be done with printed circuit boards. So that picture that you saw, the bezel, there are no stickers on it. That is a PCB. Now, that PCB, actually I was able to have that fabricated the same thickness as the label, or the bezel that's on the 1541. When you peel that off, that's actually an aluminum label that's inset into a recessed area behind the drive, or behind the label in the drive, and that's 0.8 of a millimeter thick, and I'm able to fabricate at 0.8 millimeters for PCB. So that worked out really well. The bezel on the MasterTracker isn't any thicker than the original one that's there. I'm not going to go into the installation, that will drag on way too long, but it's actually, that was another constraint, that it needed to be reasonably easy to install. So that's actually true. I have a PCB that bolts on the front of the drive, and that guides you in cutting out the area in behind the bezel that needs to be free for everything to communicate through the case. So those were really the restrictions, and then it just came down to what are we going to put in it. But before I go over to the bench and show you what it is and the features, I just want to give a huge shout out to PCBWay. They have been involved in this project in that they've been providing PCBs for me, accurate PCBs, and shipped quick, top quality. I can't say enough good things about them. If you have any PCB projects, any electronics projects that you want to do, there's plenty of open source stuff out there that you might want to run a board. Do consider PCBWay. There's going to be a link in the description that'll give you a break on the price for your first purchase from them, so you can take advantage of that. So thanks PCBWay, you did a great job fabricating these boards, and now let's go and see how these boards function in this device, and I'll show you all of the features. All right, so we're back over at my workbench. This is the area where I developed the MasterTracker, where I did a lot of the testing and the debugging. It was all done right here. So that's it, in person, live, and fully functional. So when you look at it, it does have a representative look that is kind of true to the original 1541 label or badge that's on the drive. That was important to me. I didn't want to stray too far from that, so that's why you'll see the the Commodore logo here, the 1541 here, and the rainbow bars, which are, I know it sounds kind of lame that it doesn't look as good on camera as it does in the video, which is true. I will insert a format of a disc shot in the dark, which makes the colors stand out more realistically as to what you'd see with your eye. But they are red, orange, yellow, green, and then blue. So that's the order. So let's start talking about the features. Right here is the Commodore logo, and that is backlit white all the time. Its function is just to be there and to be representative. The next are the rainbow bars. Those are maybe 1.5 inches long, something like that. And at first we just wanted to do LEDs, and then we thought, you know what, we could incorporate a cool feature into this. So what we did is we tied those bars into the write signal of the drive, so that when the drive is writing, the bars will roll. It'll go from the top down and then back to the top, and it'll roll as it's writing. And the faster it writes, that changes the effect. We didn't want a static effect. We wanted one tied to the speed at which the data is being written to the disk, which makes for some really interesting effects, because a standard 1541 format will roll a certain way. JiffyDOS format will roll differently. And then the effect really starts getting crazy when you're talking the super fast file copier with a 21-second backup, or writing with the Phantom. They all have very unique patterns associated to them, and those exist the way they do because of the speed at which they write to the drive. So I'm going to do a JiffyDOS format because that doesn't take too long, and just so that you can see the rolling feature. This is the track and half track display. You'll see that change as the format proceeds. And this is the density level display, which you'll see change as well. So I'll just start the format here. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, we're getting towards the end. All right, so you saw, hopefully that got picked up on the video, the rolling bars. A couple other things you probably picked up during that short demo is this light cycled with the steps, which is a feature that you can use or not use depending on what you like. There's a jumper header on the board that allows you to enable it or disable it, and you can use the original power LED on the 1541, or you can use a bicolor LED of your choice. It can be red blue, which is what this is, or red green. If you have the red blue, obviously it'll do what it does here. It'll cycle between red and blue while it steps. If you choose to disable it with a red blue, then it turns both LEDs on. You end up with a purple LED there. All right, so you saw that, and you heard something. You heard a buzzing. That is a feature designed into the digital track display by West 256, and that is an audio representation of the density of the data on the disk. So as you travel from track 1 to track 35 or beyond to track 40 if you're using, say, the Phantom. You will hear the density change as the density level increases. You'll hear a change in the tone. And if you're doing a stock format, then there's the added feature of being able to hear the sync marks being written, and those are represented by a higher pitch tone. That I'm going to insert in a window up here, and you'll be able to see that and hear that. It will be the full format of a disc, so that'll be 90 seconds of your life if you choose to listen to it, and it's a bit slower, but you get to hear more of what's going on from a data perspective being written to the disk. It's quite interesting. And then if you happen to be using one of these and you get tired of listening to the density and the sync marks and such, there's a header on the MasterTracker as well to turn the audio off if you don't like it. So, this button here is the reset button, and that is like turning the drive on and off. And it will become clear momentarily as to why we have a reset button there. We saw the track and half track. The sync button is there to synchronize the tracker so that it knows where you are. And the reason why you have to have that is there are two different kinds of trackers. There's a RAM reader and there's a step counter. And the RAM readers are easily confused, easily disabled by software protection schemes and speeders, depending how they're manipulating the memory in a disk drive. They may not accurately represent what's going on in terms of head location. The step counter, which is what this uses, cannot be defeated by anything. It counts steps, up, down, full tracks, half tracks, but you have to tell it where it is when it starts. That's really easy to do because we all know track 18 is the directory track. It's easy to find. You load a directory and you're on track 18. So if you turn this thing on and it wasn't on track 18, it was someplace else when you shut it off, it's not going to know where it is until you tell it. So you load a directory, hit the sync button, that resets the MasterTracker to track 18. So now we know it's on track 18. We just did a directory, and from then on during that session, it will accurately show you exactly where the head is. And it's fast too. As fast as that head can move, this thing can keep up with it. There is no lag at all. It's fabulous. West256 did an incredible job. The man's brilliant. Big fan. And thank you very much for your allowing me to incorporate that into the MasterTracker. Has to be said. It's wonderful. So that's why we have the sync there. The density level display, it goes from 1 to 4. 1 is at the lowest track 1, and 4 is the density level at the highest point, 35 or 40. The next one is the ID button, and this allows you to change the device number of the drive simply by pushing a button. So right now it's device 8. If I push that, now it's drive 9. I can go drive 10, drive 11, and then it cycles back to 8. When you change that, that change doesn't come into effect until you reset the drive. So that's why that reset button is there. So you can change the device number on the fly, hit reset, you're off and running. So the next thing after that are 2 spots. There's the ROM button, and then there are 4 squares there, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. This actually represents the 4 ROM positions of the drive ROM in here. So we actually took the original drive ROM out, and we put a ROM board in there, and then you can just put your own ROM in there, and you can write up to 4 different drive ROM images onto that chip, and then you can select whichever one you want. Originally the idea was, well, I want to be able to have JiffyDOS and I want to be able to have stock DOS on there. So I wanted to have 2 to switch between 2. But the option existed to have more than 2. So we chose to have 4. Just in case somebody or I ever want to have a custom drive ROM, then I can put a custom drive ROM in position 3 or 4 or wherever I want, and then I can just toggle through, and then those actually take effect immediately. So they're different colors. Drive ROM 1 is red LED behind there, next one is orange, yellow, and green. So 3 on this particular drive as I programmed it is JiffyDOS, so that's kind of where I keep it. The last feature of this is the 1541, and right now you see that it just says 1541, and not sure if the video is going to pick this up, but that is actually the write protect indicator. If there's no write protect on the disk, the 1541 is not illuminated, but by pulling the disk partly out, that covers up the write protect sensor as if there were a write protect on, and hopefully you can see that there is a blue LED, or there are a couple blue LEDs on this prototype behind the 1541, and it glows blue around the edge of the 1541. So put it in, so you can see it goes out and comes on. So that is the MasterTracker basically. I think I've covered all the features of it. It's essentially a really fancy tracker with some features, as much as that I could pack into the area where the original bezel or logo on the 1541 resided. It's been a really fun project, and I've really enjoyed it. I'm glad that you've come along and taken a look to see what I built. This is the first working prototype of this device. I have some boards coming still, and a few changes will happen. Functionally, it's going to look the same. I've added an extra LED in behind the 1541, so it's it pops a little bit more than it does. But otherwise, other than some routing changes on the board, it's pretty much done. So really happy. I've wanted to share this. I've been working on it for a long time, been really proud. We were fighting with some bugs for a while, but just recently, a couple weeks ago, I finally got to the point where the prototype worked, and I've been torture testing it ever since. This poor drive has had its head hammered, I don't know how many hundreds of times, making sure that everything on the circuit is stable. But it's a trooper. It keeps running and it's performing really well. So that's the MasterTracker. I'm glad you came along. If you're enjoying what I'm doing on this channel, please do like and subscribe. It helps the channel. Oh, one more thing. With respect to the MasterTracker, I was thinking if people are interested and like to see a bit more about it, I thought I could do a video on some of the development work that happened, because over the past 2 years I took a whole bunch of footage on the development boards and how, for example, the rolling LEDs were developed, and early prototypes of the boards, and how we developed some of the effects in some of the boards. Some of the videos, the epic fails of some of these designs. I could throw together a short video and you could see that. You're probably interested in seeing what's in behind here. This video is going to get too long, so I'm going to cut it off where I have, but I can do another video taking drive opening up and showing you everything that makes up the MasterTracker. And yeah, I think I've covered everything. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on 8-Bit Resurgence. Bye for now.